Well, why don't we, we've got a quorum, so we can get started. So let's do that. So I think what we'll do is we'll immediately jump to item 5, A on our new business, which is a discussion with essentially Susan Austin and Kim Watson from the Groton Public School System. So we have our 2 representatives, and so that's great. And so let's start. Basically, I want to introduce who the task force is. Jessie Stratton was appointed to the task force. She's a former state rep in Connecticut, was chairman of the Environment Committee, went on to work at DEEP, and then over at Avery Point at the CIRCA program. Sarah Kelly is a organic chemist who ended up running the program at Pfizer's in Groton here. And Mickey Weiss is a former founder and former director of the Project O, which the school system knows a great deal about. And he is as they say, a lobster scientist with a PhD. And he likes to go south in the winter to see the tropical lobsters as well. And I'm Zell Stever, the chairman, and I've been in government for almost all my career. I started out teaching, and that's sort of who I am. If Frank joins us, Frank Boland is a professor emeritus at UConn, physical oceanographer, and Victor Villagra is a doctor who specialized in internal medicine and now specializes in healthcare, and has done work on a number of critical issues relating to climate change problems. In particular, he was involved with the recovery of Katrina after the major hurricane down there. I see Kim has joined us. If you would unmute yourself, that would be great. We have, and I'll let Kim, you want to introduce your gang here? That would be great. And tell us a little bit about your folks.
My gang. Oh, I love that. Sarah, how are you? It's so good to see you.
It's good to see you too. I'm great. Thanks.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
It's been a while.
How cool is that? Sorry, Sarah and I go back years.
Like 20 years or something. I don't know.
30. But and I haven't
But
seen
who's counting?
But who's was it yesterday? So hi, for those who don't know me, my name is Kim Shepherdson Watson. I am the chair of the Board of Education. And who I see is on is Phil Piazza, who is our assistant superintendent, and he's the guy waving. And my other good gang member is Sam Kilpatrick, and he is the director of buildings and grounds for the Groton School District. So that's who I believe I have that's here.
Okay, and Frank Boland just joined us, and he's the professor emeritus from Avery Point, marine scientist, shallow water oceanographer, and been involved with town government for ever since I got involved, which is back in 1970. Okay, so the task force was set up 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, by the town council to really look at the issue of climate change and resiliency in our community. And this is a follow-on to an earlier task force that had been set up by a former town council some 10 years ago. So this is an ongoing issue that is of concern to the Groton Town Council. And I see Victor Villagra is about to join us, so let me see if he shows up here on the screen. Not yet. Okay. The task force was charged with basically 6 very short items. One was to develop best policies and practices for climate change and resiliency in Groton. It was to recommend pilot projects to improve resiliency along our coast and inland waters. 3, and this is where you guys are all involved, education on climate resiliency and sustainability and Groton's vulnerabilities. The 4th was to foster a resilient and sustainable Groton from high impact events that are things like hurricanes, droughts, and so forth, and act on referrals from the town council, and then provide updates and annual reports to the Groton Town Council. We are a task force and we don't have a beginning and ending date at this point. We were all recently reappointed by the town council last week, I understand, although I haven't seen the letter, but that's who we are. We have been working, our meeting once a month, pretty much, and with a series of special meetings for the past 2 years. We have had several important things that have happened. One is that this last spring, the town council, at our recommendations, passed a very important ordinance that based, or not an ordinance, but a resolution that basically said going forward that climate change and resiliency should be a part of all decisions that the town of Groton makes, or the city of the Groton generally makes across the board. And they also, in this last budget cycle, at our suggestion, have now created a new position of a manager for climate and resiliency, and that will hopefully be filled in this upcoming budget year going forward. And those are 2 pretty major successes that we've had. One of the things that we've done is that we early on looked at the whole issue, tried to figure out what the nature of the issue was within the task force. I think we came to an agreement that we've got a big problem and we're going to have to slowly and carefully go at this thing over the long haul. It was clear that without having staff, we weren't going to be able to get much done because we don't have the authority to basically apply for federal grants. And that's where, in good measure, a lot of the money for a lot of the activities probably going forward will come from. So let me just quickly say that one of the major things that we've done over the last year is we have met with all of the major Groton directors, government directors, public works, planning, and so forth, to get a sense of where they are in terms of what they've done, and because a lot has been done in Groton, but also what they think is important for the future. So we've got a good sense. For example, we met with the chief of police, who is also our emergency management officer for the town, and I've had a very productive conversation there. Met with public works, got a good sense of what they're doing and how they're doing it, and so forth. And though we've come down to the point where we thought it was time to meet with the Board of Education and the superintendent of schools, because number 3 on our item was education. And the whole Board of Education plays an absolutely critical role from our perspective of what we're going to be doing in the future and how we get the public on board to take this existential threat seriously. Of course, during this whole time, we've had or at least for the last year, we've had this huge problem of the pandemic, which has forced us all onto what we're doing today, which is a Zoom call. And I would just simply, as we pointed out to many of the people we've talked with, the pandemic has in effect a solution which is called a vaccine. Climate change has no such thing as a vaccine. And so our problem becomes a little more interesting and more possibly more difficult to solve going forward. We don't expect things are going to happen overnight, but we expect over time we ought to be able to work together. So I would hope that this session is the first of essentially many sessions with the board, with the school system, to try to figure out how we might be able to partner and be able to help on in some areas, and sort of to understand where you were all going. I do recall that during the first task force that I was involved with, in many ways, the Groton school system had really done some terrific things. For example, I believe the Badaris furnaces, as they're called, that's the heating systems in the school system in the Clark. That's where I used to teach. Sorry, in the Cutler school system, a school building had been really an upgrade, which made that whole system far more efficient than it had been before. So there's an example of where the Board of Education through was it Greenleaf, I think his name was, had really made a huge effort to see to it that the town, in this case, the school facility, was becoming much more efficient. So that's sort of my basic spiel at this point. What we really want to do is listen to what you think you've done in terms of what practices and what activities you've taken on that really responds to climate change and resiliency, and then just sort of to start this conversation. So Kim, I will. How would you like to proceed?
So I think that I think it makes sense if Sam could speak to some of the things that we are doing specifically. As you know, in Groton, we've had the 2020 program, or I'm sorry, it is Thursday and it's 5, and my thought process is no longer available. And I say that on Monday, it's 5 o'clock and I don't have a thought process. So every day I don't have a thought process. But that we had the 2020, which then created 3 new buildings. And I think with the 3 new buildings, I think Sam can kind of speak to sort of what are some of these resiliencies in terms of energy efficiencies, and also just being able to be more mindful around how do we be kind to our environment, and how do we honor the fact that if we don't take care of our earth, it ain't going to be good. And so I think Sam could speak to that, and also speak to what are we doing with our other buildings that are keeping online, that are older, and how what is Sam doing and what is his people doing around around more energy efficient and more environmentally friendly practices. I think that the other thing that we could touch on too, if you're taking a look at if this is about resiliency, and if this is about teaching, and if this is about moving people more towards understanding climate issues and climates, I think that I'm very proud of what the district has been able to do in the past couple of years. We have a greenhouse that's attached to the Fitch High School, and Sam, you know more about that than I do. We have a farm to table program where we have kids working in gardens, and we are getting actually more locally produced foods, so that we're not doing we're lessening our carbon imprint because we're not getting them for such a distance. Once again, Sam can talk about that. But what I'm really excited about is that we already have a magnet school, elementary magnet school, that is a STEAM based, and there's a really big theme around how to take care of the environment and teaching kids the importance of that. We're building on the west side site, which is now the Thames River Elementary School, it's a STEM, Phil, is that correct? Or maritime, right?
The Thames is going to be the environmental and marine science.
Right. So we have a whole elementary school, that magnet program, that is really going to be steeped in that. With my understanding is that gets to be carried over through the middle school, because there's a STEM component to that, and that we're pushing that towards the high school, and that we're actually, as a high school, really looking at career oriented programs, and that the hope is that we have Project Lead the Way, that we could be helping kids think about like, could they get a career in cleaner energy production? And how can we get companies to partner with the high school to help our kids become more efficient, and just that they could do a career path on that. So that's the educational piece. And I think that Phil can throw in the details, but what we're doing right now in terms of our buildings, that's Sam, and I'm gonna, for the first time, Sam, right? Shut up and let you talk.
Thank you.
Question
Yes.
or caveat. Um, in talking with us, don't assume that we know anything. I don't have any idea what the 2020 program is, for example.
Okay, so Frank, thank you
So
very
it just, as we go in, don't be afraid to take it back to ground zero.
Okay, Frank, thank you. And let me spend a couple seconds on that, because that's actually the major hallmark for the Groton, for the town of Groton. 4 years ago, Sam, 5?
2014.
The whole 2020 I lost, and I just have never gained, time capacity since then. So what the 2020 plan was really about, trying to actually just really build a better district, and that we had a lot of aging schools, schools that were created in the 1940s, 1950s. Is that correct? And actually the 2020 plan came out of at least an 18-month that Mr. Greenleaf was a part of. And Sam, I think you came on at your tenure started at the end of that, where we're trying to look at what do we do with the old infrastructure, and does it make sense to create a more usable infrastructure from the current school buildings that we had, or does it make sense that we take a couple of buildings offline and build new school buildings? And so what that committee came up with, and the committee was people from the permanent school building, which is a longstanding committee that belongs in the town of Groton. It was formed in the town council years and years and years ago. And then there was community members, both from the town council, the RTM, Board of Ed, and then private citizens, which meant like once a week for like 18 to 19 months, that kind of came up with the 2020, which then had to go to the voters. And what the voters voted on was to take the two standing middle schools, which is there's one on Cutler Middle School, which is on Fishtown Road, and then West Side, which is on Brandegee. I'm making up that, or Benham, Brandegee. And take those two middle schools and actually form one Groton Middle School, and actually have it close enough to the high school so that we could have some campus-like experiences between the high school and middle school. And taking the two sites, building two new elementary schools that could actually house more kids from it. And take, the original goal was to take 3 elementary schools off, but we ended up taking one off beforehand for budgetary purposes. And then, so at the end of this year, we are taking Mary Morrison. Actually, it was 4 elementary schools. One we had to do sooner than later. Mary Morrison, we're going to keep as a potential site that if swing space, if we all of a sudden get this huge flux of people. We also have a phenomenal robotics program that we need to have a more permanent house for. And that's some of the things that Mary Morrison is going to be used for. SB Butler, which is the one that's in Mystic, off of a road in Mystic, I can't remember the name. And then there's Clodchester, which is in the center of Groton, by Pequannock Plains. Those 2 sites are going to be really brought back to the town, and the town will then do what they want to with those sites. And the reasons why those 3 buildings were picked was that there was too much to be done with those two buildings to make them energy efficient and then also programmatically efficient for the town. And really getting away from having neighborhood schools where you would take neighborhoods and build an elementary school. Because when I started on the board 10 years ago, there was a lot more buildings that were school buildings, and we're really trying to be much more thoughtful around that. So that's what the 2020 plan is. I think that's what the 2020 plan is.
Thank you. Very familiar with the program. Never heard the term 2020.
Okay, sorry. Yep.
But we're very familiar with it. And we've been involved with Groton Public Schools for 50 years. Time goes by when you're having fun.
Okay, so I guess I'll speak about a couple of items. I guess first I would address what we have been doing for the last few years, since I got here at least. I know one of the first projects we did was convert lighting at the high school to LED lighting, not the entire building, but many of the areas of the building are now LED, including the gymnasium, the newer wings of the high school. We also did a project that, even though these schools seem new, Northeast Academy and Catherine Kolnaski, they're already about 15 years old. So over the last couple of years, we converted those two buildings, Northeast Academy and Catherine Kolnaski schools, to LED lighting inside and out, parking lots and inside the buildings. When you talk about the new buildings that we're building right now, the new Groton Middle School and the new Thames River Elementary and the Mystic River Elementary, those will be all LED lighting in the buildings. When you mention the Boderis boilers at Cutler Middle School that are gone, of course, now, the new plants that we have in our 3 schools are far more efficient even than those Boderis boilers were. So all those things are taking place presently. We've also converted some of our buildings to natural gas, which was a cost savings. It was a safer way of getting fuel delivered to the school, in the sense that you didn't have oil trucks coming to schools, and of course saving that carbon that you're using, having those delivery vehicles coming to the school. But it's also more efficient and burns harder for us. So the natural gas at Claude Chester, the new Groton Middle School, Cutler Middle School, and now or the old Cutler Middle School, Thames River and the Mystic River schools are all be natural gas. Fitch High School, we converted to natural gas about 5 years ago now. So we've done those projects, and of course the new schools having these new more efficient lighting systems, heating plants, etc. Also, you know that when we talk about schools that were built in the 50s and 60s, daylighting wasn't such a big deal, but the daylighting that is taking place, that they've incorporated in the new buildings, is quite remarkable. I was just in the middle school yesterday in one of the special needs programs, and they don't use the lighting most of the time, unless it's a dark storm outside or very late in the day in the wintertime. They don't even use the lighting in the classrooms because the daylighting that's available to them. So, and of course, the fact that daylighting is so much more beneficial to kids in their educational process, that's a great benefit in the long run too. So that's a pretty quick overview. I think Susan may have shared some information with Dr. Piazza as well.
Yeah, and Kim did cover some of it in terms of really just focusing on the fact that the 5 elementary schools will now be magnet themed, and each of the schools has STEM courses in there, with the previously mentioned, Thames being really focused on environmental and and marine science. And as Kim described, the plan is to, have these kids start at that age and have these STEM classes and experiences, follow them through, to the middle school and up through the high school. She also mentioned some of the, the farm to table and the new greenhouse, which of course will give our kids some great experiences and some good knowledge there in terms of, preserving resources. One thing I think, in the work that Sam's been doing, a lot of the stuff with the HVAC systems in the schools, these ESSER grants, which are the emergency relief funds that are given to schools for COVID. Part of the responsibilities of that is health and safety protocols in schools. And so that is allowing us to look at our HVAC systems in all of the schools and central office in terms of providing, high quality air to those buildings as well. So she wanted me to mention that. But yeah, so I mean, I think we're excited. For those who joined late, I'm the new assistant superintendent. I'm a couple months in to the job, so it's been pretty awesome coming in at this particular time while all these new projects. It was one of the things that really led me to Groton was with these new building projects. I've been involved in them before in previous districts, and I've been able to walk through with Sam and Susan to these new buildings, and they're just going to be incredible. And they're going to allow us to provide some great experiences for the kids of Groton. So I'm looking forward. I'm happy to be here, and hopefully I'll be continuing to work with you guys as we move forward.
I know one thing I left out was that at the new middle school, which is completed, has been turned over to the school, it is solar ready. It can accept solar panels at the new middle school, and the elementary schools have that component as well. One of the additional things that at the elementary schools they're talking about is potentially building carports that would have solar on them. So those are all in the discussion stages. Rick Norris from the Public Works Department is running those programs, and he's been in contact with the Green Bank and all the rest of the programs that might be involved in actually getting those programs going. But
So Sam, can I ask you a question a little bit on that? Sounds like, what would be on your top wish list of things to add to your agenda or things to put in the future? I mean, you mentioned solar.
Well, with the high efficiency systems that we're putting in our newest schools, certainly solar would probably be the number one item that I think that it would be not only beneficial to help with the electrical usage, but it would also be a great program to have for the kids to learn about that stuff. So that could be tied into the science programs as well. So I think that would be a pretty high priority for us.
All right. Do you have an idea of solar panels on the new school was a subject that we talked about 2 years ago. It was a red flag to some of these bulls. What now is your might be the time? You say Rick is working on what? Looking for grants or looking to work with Trinity or one of the free providers, kind of
I don't, off the top of my head, I don't remember who he's working with, but I know that the town council was pretty adamant that we try and do this. So I know that he's involved in working something out. And I think there may be some funding left at the end of the project that the town council would be interested in using to make that come to fruition. You probably know that in order to put solar panels on roofs, that they pretty much require that they be at least that you have at least 20 years life left in the roof. We've also taken a look at the high school, and there are parts of the high school that could accept solar panels, and the roof is new enough that you could do that. But a lot of the roof at the high school, for instance, is not of the vintage that they're looking for. So we would have to upgrade the roof. And there are actually programs that will include the replacement of roof at the same time that the panels go on. So again, we're working with Rick on that, and I would say we'd work on them one program at a time. Hopefully the newer buildings will get it first, and then we'd move on.
To what extent, Rick, Zell mentioned the town council statement about environment being sort of central to programs. Now, one of the things that I've sensed over the years is that to some degree, the school operation, the board, the school operations, school incorporated, is to some extent an independent functionary. You guys are really a world unto yourself. Am I wrong on that, or do you?
I think Kim will probably speak on that, but I don't think that's going to be her answer. I think she's going to disagree with that to a certain degree.
In terms of budget and how a school district has a budget is very different than the town side. So I can understand where it feels like it's a separate entity because there's a I'm losing my words. So I'm not thinking it through. That's where I think where you get a sense that we're a separate entity. But we are 59% of the town budget.
Yeah.
Now we receive state and federal monies that both go directly to the town to support the school district, but that also goes directly to the district to support the district. And so yes, we are also a separate entity in that there's a Rick Norris is doing the new school buildings, but there's a buildings and grounds for the town, and there's also one for the district. But I actually see that we are really tied into the town because it's actually the town who actually funds the budget for the district. There are
Right.
requirements that the federal government have in terms of minimum, the MBR, where they can't go below a certain amount and stuff. But no, I actually think it's an integral piece. I was a part of a committee maybe 5-8 a while ago that really looked at finding efficiencies between the town and the district where we could share some more services. And I actually think life just kind of happened and we didn't really kind of come to a closure about that. But yes, it looks like there's some duplicates, Frank, in terms of that there's other departments, but I actually think that we're pretty connected in the terms of there's many times instead of us buying another plow, Sam, the town does things for the district. And I think that we actually also do that for the town.
Well, the reason that I ask is that I'm just looking at this resolution. Commitment to address climate change, resiliency, and sustainability as a central management principle for all actions of the town government.
Right. That's the town
government. I guess it's our hope that we won't need a separate resolution in dealing with the schools, because we would very much like to see, or I would very much like to see, this resolution really be central to your thinking as you go down the road, both in terms of education. Being an educator, that's one of my prime interests, but also in terms of facilities. And the reason that the question came up in my mind was that not very long ago, we witnessed a presentation, and I've forgotten who made it, and it could very well have been you, Kim, but I won't blame you. we saw a presentation requesting the allocation of some portion of the monies that were left from the new school, the middle school, to be used to light an athletic field.
Mhm.
And that being done prior to the discussion, and again, on our priority list, our you know, bucket list, solar panels. Matters green. And we're going to light this field in the interest of folks that might come. It seemed like there was a little bit of a disconnect between concern for matters green and resilience and sustainability and the activities of the school group. I won't say board, I'm getting, you know.
No, I mean, so yes. So actually, it was actually through Rick Norris, I think, was the presentation of what monies we had left over could we do lighting of the field, because we saw the need we have a limited amount of fields, and this does give us if we do light a field, we do have more options for kids to play, and they're wanting it. The issue about so I understand your lens, and I think what I hear you saying in general is what is the lens that we're using in order to sort of to think forward about that. I am not, Sam, if you could help me think about what has been the difficulties around getting the solar panels immediately placed on the Groton Middle School. Can you talk me through that?
Yeah, the reason that they couldn't be put on immediately or as part of the building project is because it was not part of the ed specs that were written in 2014. So it became probably more apparent and part of the overall wish list of the project to do it at some point, but it wasn't in the original ed spec, so the state would not allow it as part of the project. So that's why it came to, it was actually the Permanent School Building Committee that had a list of items, and I don't think they prioritized them, but they were a list of items that they would like to use the I don't know if leftover funds or remaining funds from the project to do some of those projects. And solar was one of those on the list. I don't think they listed them in a priority list, but it was certainly on the list along with lighting and maybe some storage facilities, maybe lavatories for the field, some other things like that. But it was certainly on the list.
It's interesting that it wasn't on the list because the panels weren't on the list. Because of course, as El said, a lot of this ground was plowed between 2010 and 2012, and the town of Groton had an energy use study that included all of this. And that, again, that feeds to my concern about the communications and how things go back and forth. It's we're finding that there's a fair amount of stovepiping, and you know, not everything Rick does I know about, or the DPW does, you know about, this sort of thing. It just goes. So communication is something that we have to keep an eye on. And then we have this resolution. We would like to see it appreciated by and kept in mind by all elements of the town and city, for that matter.
Yeah,
Mickey?
So certainly energy conservation and reduction of the carbon footprint are important aspects of resiliency and sustainability, but there's some others as well that maybe you could tell us a little bit about. For example, water conservation. How about reduction of solid waste, getting plastics out of our waste stream? These are not only important in terms of the schools contributing to those conservation actions, but also providing example to the kids that are in the schools to see that that's being done. That's a priority. So, can you address maybe some of those, the solid waste, recycling, maybe water conservation, because we know that one of the aspects that we predict from climate change is droughts.
Yeah, I can address the recycling immediately. We've had a recycling program, and it was started long before I got here. But I know that, for instance, the Thames River Magnet School, the principal there, Jamie Giordano, has already begun putting her green team together, which will be a supervisor, and the kids will actually go around the building collecting the various recyclables and sorting them and making sure that those things go into the pile or the dumpster, which would be recycled or reused somewhere. So, but that program, we've been recycling both paper products and plastics and bottles ever since I've been here, for the 7 years I've been here. I did, if I could just quickly just say to Sarah that she asked me about priorities. I did want to mention that my second priority would be to take a look at we had a study done by an engineering firm a couple of years ago, which included Charles Barnum School. And one of the recommendations from that company was to do a new HVAC system at Charles Barnum School. And because Charles Barnum is going to be our oldest school in the system, that would be my second priority, would be to tackle the HVAC system at Charles Barnum School with a much more efficient system like we're using at the other schools. There is, this past year, the town was kind enough to grant us some money in the CIP for dishwashing equipment. Apparently dishwashing equipment went away years ago in the schools, probably as a cost savings measure when they went to probably plastic to deliver the food to the kids. And as the town had the new regulations regarding plastic, we've installed dishwashing equipment, and that's what we're doing in the new schools as well. Dishwashing equipment, so we'll have new trays that will be reused, washed in the dishwashers and reused. So far less waste than we had previously, for sure. So
one of the new aspects that's being considered by the Resource Recovery Agency that serves our area is looking at organic composting materials. So, like, for example, food waste from the cafeteria, instead of getting thrown out, could be, somehow composted. And I know in Stonington, they have a pilot program that they just begun where they're going to be composting food waste from commercial sites. I don't know if that includes their schools district or not, but it sure would be a good place to look at.
yeah, the composting of the food waste will actually be part of our food service program. They are with this gardens that the kids they have raised bed gardens throughout the district at almost every school, and so part of that plan is to also have a composting bin at each of those sites so that they can take the food waste that would normally go into the trash and reuse it for their gardens that they're going to be growing at these schools.
Do you have like an overall plan that you would identify as a sort of sustainability and resilience plan? Some of the departments did, and some didn't necessarily identify it as that, but something that it sounds like there's been a major focus on reducing the major costs of lighting and heating and perhaps cooling. What other component pieces do you see as part of it? Mickey's explored some of the water and waste issues. But do you have something that looks out 5 years, or that, you know, kind of is a strategic plan of where you would like to head?
No, I'm not
No.
aware of one, but.
So the closest thing is probably the 2020 plan of, you know, kind of reducing the footprint,
Yeah.
improving the energy efficiency.
Going from 14 schools to 8 by the time we're done
Right.
probably was probably the biggest move, but
Yep.
these other things, I think Kim would probably want to address.
Oh, thank you, Sam.
Well, okay, so let me jump in here because this is probably going to go on too long. I would, in deference to our guests, I think we probably ought to go another 15 minutes and then probably stop. I think what we're going to need to do is probably get back with you all. I think you've confirmed a lot of what we thought was going on, and a lot of things you're doing we're simply unaware of. And that would suggest that we need to have some better communication, not only to us, but to Joe Q public out there, including the town council, so they know that you're making some significant progress. Let me just very quickly raise, and I'm going to raise these only as examples. They're not in any kind of priority, but these are the kinds of things that, as I've looked around the state of Connecticut in particular, see some school systems looking at. I mean, while we make a great stride in reducing our footprint from 14 to 8 schools, the downside of that is that we then increase the number of buses that then have to go back and forth in town, I think, but I don't know that.
We're looking at that, and we are addressing that right now. Actually,
good.
we're absolutely, that's actually a huge commitment that the district staff are doing. We have actually gotten studies done where we're actually going to be reducing and making sure that our buses are much more full. So I do need to say that that's something that we are doing.
Well, let me follow on, because my comment is that I noticed that there's a big effort to, for example, electrify school buses across the country. And so my question is that also being looked at? Because it turns out that our vehicles, that is cars and trucks, in the case of the state of Connecticut, produce about 38% of our greenhouse gases, which are what's causing the climate change. And so there's an area where we might be able to, and I don't know, but I think you have to look at that, where we might be able to make some significant progress. And then the other side of that is, what are the opportunities for going forward? And I know you can't do this tomorrow or then even next year. What will be the opportunities for getting kids to walk to school or to ride bikes to school? I mean, I have had kids in the Groton school system in Noank, and I do remember my 2 boys having to walk up the hill there every day. And while I didn't like it the first couple of weeks, by the end of the end of the season, they could run up that hill and I couldn't. So it had some benefits that went beyond the school system. But those are a couple of the kinds of things I'm thinking about, because that would suggest that we'd have to work cooperatively across with Public Works and with our recreational Department of Recreation to see if we could do something that made sense. I mean, I'm not trying to push the envelope beyond what's possible, but exploring these sorts of things ends up being important, because what this does is, 2, it reduces our energy. 1, it has some benefits to the students. It also sets a tone for the community, because the community actually does look at very closely at what the school system does, and the kids bring this information home to their parents. And God, if they can ride a bike to school, maybe they could ride their bike to EB or Pfizer's. I mean, there is these consequences that happen as a result of it. Or in the case of recycling food waste, if you can demonstrate that this really makes sense, then you start to see people at home doing the same thing. So I simply bring those up as just a couple of examples of where we might look at this thing. The other thing I was going to say, and I'm going to change the subject here slightly, because our town council asked us to look at the education part of this thing. We have, in fact, looked at that in the task force a little bit. And just to give you some idea of what we're trying to think about, for example, signage and storyboards along our shoreline about the impacts of sea level rise and storms. That's an educational effort. Public meetings and listening sessions is another one. That probably doesn't include directly the school system, but lectures and classes at the public schools, the libraries, and the university, all of which we have. And if we could coordinate that, we might make a big difference. Workshops and field trips. I mean, I was just thinking that recently the Canalcy School had a new trail established over there, which then makes that available to the students in that school in a way that actually enhances and makes much better what they already had. And you have a science teacher over there who had done a terrific job in this thing. We also think that TV and radio programs, public service announcements, reading materials, and continuing education. And that leads me to the notion of, what are the possibilities for continuing education for one, your staff, your teachers, and then what is the adult education component of that might be possible, that we might be able to work with you or assist in some way that might be useful. And then, of course, the area that because we're all old folks and we're terrified of is we got the Facebook and Twitter accounts that a lot of what we see is just goes over my head, frankly. But there's some possibilities there. And those are some of the things that I think we might consider under the broad category of education. I know it goes outside the statutory concerns that you all have, because you have to really meet what's required by the state and in many cases by the federal government. So here's the question: how can we help you? What can we do to help you look at some of these things in a non-confrontational, cooperative sort of way? I mean, what's become clear to us is that Groton has been organized around stovepipes. Public Works works for Public Works. Planning works for planning. Education tends to work in the education silo, and so forth. And what's clear is that this climate stuff's not going to go away. Our storms are going to get worse. Our disasters are going to get worse. And we need to make the best of this thing, and there's basically two fundamental ways of doing this. One is to reduce and make more efficient our systems of energy. And two, what do we do to respond to what's already in the works for climate change so we can become a more resilient community? So that's sort of my thought. Now, the task force members, Jesse, you're welcome to, Sarah, Frank, by all means speak up. And then from your side, Kim and Phil and Sam, let me know what you think.
Sam I did see Sam had to duck out to go to his negotiations meetings, but I'll say this, obviously at this point in time, you guys know a lot more about how the town of Groton works than I do. I'm learning as I go. But a lot of the stuff that I heard you say just now, really a lot of it has to do with communication. And that's how you sort of started those comments. You mentioned communication. So I'm hopeful that I can help in that way. And I think that's going to be a big part of working together. Kim started telling you about the work we're doing on the buses. And I think when the time comes, that's where we can sort of work together, because that's going to be a hard sell for the community. We're looking, Kim referenced the study that we're having done that's just coming back to us now in drips and drabs about combining the runs of the middle school and the high school. That would be a tremendous thing, obviously for the environment. Tons of less runs. I mean, I had the figures once about the not only the savings on the fuel, obviously less, buses driving around the neighborhood. If you're doing a two-tiered run, one for elementary, one for middle and high, then a 3-tiered one. But of course, there's concerns that come along with that, putting middle school kids on buses with high school kids. And in my former district, we did that, and we had to work through those growing pains with the community, but it ended up saving a lot in terms of energy, fuel, environmental hazards, and of course, hopefully in the long run, it also saves some money, because I think we're going to be able to shave some buses off the routes as well if you combine these runs. But I think hearing more from your side of things might be helpful when we're presenting that, when that finally comes out.
And Phil, can I just interrupt you for a second about the buses? One of the things is that we don't own, as a district, we don't own our buses. And so we, are contracted, I think we have 1 or 2 more years of our current contract. And so, I mean, I guess that would be the opportunity to see, is whoever we contract to, are they themselves engaged in replacing older vehicles with electric school buses? But it's not, we don't own our fleet, and we haven't for years.
So
So
I realize that.
yeah, so that would be a contract to do. And Phil, I'm sorry. Thank you for letting me.
No, that's okay.
on
And
that.
the idea of electric buses is not one that I have heard. Are there districts in Connecticut that are exploring that?
I believe there are, at least I've heard, and I can't specifically say, but it's a topic that has come up. I've seen a bunch of grant money being funneled around, and I'm not sure who. I can't give you a site, frankly.
Yeah, no, but that'd be something
Something that-
interesting to research.
But this is something that makes good sense. I mean, the whole idea is to get as much of the transportation electrified as possible, simply to reduce the use of carbon source energy. And it's a straightforward sort of thing.
Yeah, I think the other parts that you were speaking of are definitely things that we can work on the education side. When you talk about lectures and classes around environment, that's where, I think by opening these buildings, and obviously we have the new middle school that people have not been able to come into because they actually moved into it during the pandemic. And so we have not been able to invite the community in to see the different aspects of it and to hear about the programs that we're doing. I think that's going to be a big push next year when we open up. We'll basically have 3 buildings to show off to the community and programs to show off to the community. So I think taking that, using our teachers, using our own resources, and inviting the community members in will be a huge piece. And that's right, we can work together too, because you guys can connect us with experts, and whether it's yourselves or people or have worked with in the past, that would be where we can definitely combine our resources.
And Phil, would you be the contact for that?
Well, I'm slowly learning what my job is going to, sit.
Give it to Phil. Give it to Phil.
Every day she says, this is going to be yours. This is going to be yours. And I'm taking that as a compliment because she's starting to trust me with more and more each day. So I would gladly take it up because it is a topic that I'm very much interested in, even though I don't have a science background. As I said, I'm more of a literature guy, but it has always been something that I've been interested in. So I'd be happy to work with you guys.
Just might be interested that Middletown.
Jesse, you'll have to get closer.
Sorry.
Good old Jesse.
Middletown, Connecticut, I believe, is the only city in Connecticut that has or is about to have an electric school bus. The Transportation Climate Initiative, which unfortunately did not pass in the legislature as of last night, funds from that were anticipated to be used to help fund or provide matching funds and things for that. But it is something that the state is starting to look at as it embraces programs to try to reduce transportation emissions.
I unfortunately have to go actually to a social justice meeting. So which is all about climate. But I do want to say, don't discount the beauty of what magnet schools can provide with this committee, because we're always looking at partners for our educators to work with and to learn from. And, to have our magnet coordinators work with your group to say, hey, do you know about this? Do you know about this person? Do you know about this person? And bringing them in. You're talking about social media, right? We have a magnet school that's arts themed. And we also have Black Box at our new middle school. So we have opportunities where we could let kids learn about this, and then how do you teach to adults, right? And so there's lots of things that I feel could be really exciting, and teach all about how do you start with the kids about how do you make us smarter around saving our climate, because it's such important. With that, I am really sorry, so I do need to leave. Got another meeting that I need to hang out to.
Kim,
We
thank you very much.
count the kids as a very important front line in this whole business. They're the ones that stop smoking. Hello.
Amen.
And we
Amen.
bring them. The other thing is, thank you so much for telling us about the school bus contract business, because we talk about districts as well. I'm going to go after the contractor. I want to see because if you take a look at Ford, the Ford 150, the best-selling truck in the United States, has gone all electric. They brought out an electric truck last week that just literally blow your socks off. And so I think that you're going to find that some of the contractors, the guys that are bidding for your contracts, are the ones that are going to be bringing in the electric buses.
And Frank, my birthday is in September. If you want to get me the electric Ford Mustang, I would love you forever. But
not a Ford Mustang, Ford F-150.
But they do have an electric Ford Mustang. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Kim,
thank you.
Thank you very much.
And just to comment on one other thing that you mentioned is, I've been talking with Susan about upping our social media presence. We do have a media person up at central office who does a lot with newspapers and stuff like that. But I do think we have to have some type of presence on even Facebook. I would say right now is not the most up to date. I think a lot of parents use that though, so that would be good. And Twitter is another way that kids learn. And maybe a couple of you could do a TikTok and we can get that going on.
Our grandkids don't go anywhere near Facebook.
Oh no, yeah, no, not anymore.
It's an old folks media.
I know, isn't it crazy? That happened really fast. Too. Happened very fast.
Yeah.
But it is still a good way. I know teachers, or parents rather, that's still how they keep updated. And again, in my former district, I used it a lot. That's how I sent out all my information. Once I posted it there, I knew the community members got it. So we definitely have to publicize a little bit more.
Well, thank you, Phil. I want to thank Phil for agreeing to take on the liaison for education and matters of resilience and sustainability.
Yeah, sure.
Phil, I mean, what we didn't get a chance to talk to Kim about is that, I mean, if it would be appropriate, I'd be happy to make a presentation to the entire school board, for example, or if you have a session with all your principals at some point, again, we would be happy to do that as a way of sort of starting this conversation to have it become more robust as time goes on. And
yeah,
so
and there are opportunities for that. Obviously, the board meets monthly, and there are subcommittees of the board. I'm trying to think of what this might fall under too. I mean, really, we could probably tie this to a lot of things. There's a curriculum committee, which obviously I think this would tie into. There's a policy committee. Obviously that would fit into this. So I'm sure, those are different forms, and we meet with principals, throughout the school year. We actually just had our first meeting today back in person for the first time. It's been on Zoom for so long. So we could definitely create some of those opportunities.
Okay, well, we'd be happy to work with you in that.
Right.
Does anybody else in the task force have a question for Phil or a comment? Sarah?
They left a new guy with you, so I hope.
I thought this was
I probably won't have all the answers.
I thought this was a very good, helpful first discussion.
Yeah.
And I think now figuring out sort of, continuing to understand the current landscape and then the, what the future holds is important. And I like the concept of learning from each other. and helping the task force in its role to educate the community. That's going to be very important.
Jesse, do you have anything?
No, I think very much enjoyed the conversation and look forward to it continuing.
Frank? Anything further? Mickey?
Nope.
Okay, anything you would want to leave with us, Phil?
No, only that it was great to meet you, and you know, I look forward to working with you guys.
Okay,
Good to see
great.
a
Well, this is
fellow-
good.
A fellow Yellow
We-
Jacket too. That was great.
We will go on to some other topics that are on our list here tonight. So thank you very much for joining us for this this session. I greatly appreciate it. And I can see, you know, Susan made a mistake. You know, she sent you here, and now we've got a whole new set of tasks for you. So it's, you know,
Right. She's gonna love my report tomorrow. You guys have a good night and enjoy your weekend.
Thank you much.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, back to the business at hand. Let me say that we sent out first of all, let me say the budget process got through. The town council signed signed on to the mill rate, which means that we get funded for next year for the manager's position. And so one of the things that I asked Sarah and Jesse to do is to draft up sort of a short document describing the kind of, or nature of the kind of person we're looking for, short of a job description, because what I think we want to do is to present this to the mayor and let her deal with the bureaucracy, and actually have the bureaucracy develop the actual formal job description for advertising. But Jesse, do you or Sarah, you want to sort of start this?
Just thinking from an efficiency standpoint, it's going to make sense to, I probably have it in front of either Sarah or me, but I am taking minutes, so that maybe you want to start. But I think what Sarah and I did is that it's a combination of, you know, what are the primary tasks that we're looking for someone to fulfill. And obviously that's sort of embraced in what our whole work has been in terms of helping work with the town departments to create a cohesive plan for how the town proceeds in each of those departments to enhance resiliency and sustainability. I think the advertising for this, I think, becomes more important, the actual qualifications, because it's not a job that we have tons of people out there that have done this for municipalities. So I don't think we're primarily looking for somebody that can walk in with a CV that sort of says, boop, 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 I've done all these things, but rather someone who has a credible understanding and appreciation for the challenges presented to the town in all of these areas, has an ability to work with people. I think that's going to be absolutely critical. That person would probably be interacting and coordinating with other regional and state entities. So I think both Sarah and I agreed communication skills are going to be critical in this. And it might well be that it's somebody without a lot of experience in any of this. Obviously, the degree to which they've worked with municipalities and stuff could be a benefit, but I think the town challenge in writing the job description, particularly the qualifications, I think writing what we want you to do sort of emanate of both. We were charged with doing what our recommendations the town have been. You know, you incorporate these things into every single part of the town. But Sarah, please go on, because I would like to be able to take notes too.
Okay, so you know, basically, in talking to Zell and talking to Jesse about it, we sort of identified a couple key skill sets or key I would call them even performance indicators of success in the role. You know, clearly you have to have some kind of technical background or interest or ability to learn about sustainability and resilience. You don't have to be a world expert about it. We have such phenomenal resources near us between Circa, the members of this committee, the state of Connecticut planning, that you don't have to be a technical expert, but you have to at least have some gravitas or credibility to you. Good written and oral communication skills, as Jesse mentioned. We also felt that an entrepreneurial kind of mindset, you're building and creating this new role. This first hire and this first person, quite frankly, is likely to make or break the position. And so this person needs to be someone who's kind of a savvy political beast, as well as, you know, being smart and a good communicator. They have to know sort of how to work with others. It's going to be building a lot of bridges, I think. So we tried to articulate, you know, some examples of what we saw as not a skill that you necessarily pick up on a resume, but one that as you interview, you're going to have to probe and look for in what this individual has done in past positions, whether it be school or past employment. So that was the idea behind it. Whether we've captured everything or captured it in a way that will make sense, we can all get out the red pen and go at that.
Okay, Frank? Or, okay, Mickey?
I am going to have to leave in a few minutes. I have a group of people coming over. But I did want to mention that peripherally related to this position is that I just got off a 4-hour Zoom meeting with the Long Island Sound Studies Citizen Advisory Committee, and they presented a report about the Long Island Sound Study new work group is doing in terms of, they have a committee now, so the resiliency and sustainability. And because the funding for the Long Island Sound Study has increased almost exponentially, they have in planning to hire what I would call roving people with the same kind of job objectives as what we're hiring town, so that there's going to be people who are going to be resources going around to the various towns, helping them, you know, manage all aspects of resiliency and sustainability. And they'll be kind of, so I think that that's another thing, that another resource that will be available to the manager that we hire. And we'll connect that manager to what's going on all around Long Island Sound. And in fact, the start off for these positions, and I can't remember the name of this position, is a really strange position. Maybe Jesse knows what it was. We all just scratched our heads about what they were even talking about, but it's like, you know, the Red Rovers or something like that. And but it turns out to be that that's what they're going to do. They're going to go around and be a source of advice and technical assistance to towns. And by having our contact here, who is going to do the same thing within the town, makes, you know, really, I think it'd be very effective.
And Frank might want to jump in and sort of say one of the good things that came out of the session was a permanent line item, budget item for Circa. And one of the issues for us trying to be able to access those resources is that by and large, their funding was limited as a result of the HUD grant to Fairfield and New Haven counties. And I don't know whether you've had any conversations with Jim about that since that happened or not, Frank.
No, I haven't, but they did get continuing funding, so that's good for the thing. I think that what I heard Sarah say was that the individual we're looking for needs to be a superlative communicator, and an ability to work across the departments in town to really assist at least in the sawing down of these stovepipes. The Circa and these new folks, whatever we're calling the Red Barons,
Red
might-
Rovers.
Red Rovers, they might help us. God, that's really, that,
It's terrible.
the battery powered car, Red Rover, whatever, are not really able to do that. They can help with matters technical. They can help with matters administrative, what grants are coming from who. But then how best to put them together for the town of Groton, that's where our guy gal come in. We've had experience, and I think Zell has seen some of it with Circa or Sea Grant and the rest. So you know what I'm talking about. I think the impersonal is what we're looking to do away with. We want to make it personal.
So Frank and Jesse, are you saying that with Circa then I know that, you know, what you had said, they were funded through a lot of the post-hurricane work in Fairfield County and New Haven. Are you saying that now that they have continued funding, you are suspecting that they'll have more security and continuing a broad remit, and that they may be available for a project or greater engagement in the New London area, Groton, New
Yeah,
London?
I think
Yeah.
that's very likely.
Good.
The hard business really came along. Circa was brand new.
Right.
There was some amount of state and university money available to keep the staff going, rather skeleton staff at that point.
I see. So this is a more secure,
This
Um,
is,
yep.
the foundation is a little more solid. And now
Yep.
you're saying, when they come along with the next big grant, let's take a
Yep.
look at a big grant that might apply to New London County
right,
or from the Connecticut River to here, something like that.
or all of Connecticut.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So Zell, what do you want to do? I mean, are we down to below critical mass at this point in terms of, can we meet? I mean, with 4, or what do you want to do here?
Yeah, we can meet. That's right.
Oh,
We can meet with
okay.
4. We've got a quorum.
All right.
So that's not a problem. I guess I would hope that we can get comments from Victor if we can, and Maggie to what you've done. And I think I would basically, after looking at the job, the nice thing you put together, the skills in writing and oral communication, negotiation, that whole business, that is absolutely the crucial part of this thing. And then that coupled with, and we gotta be careful how we say this, but I mean, someone who's got a really good political sense of where to push and how to push, it's really incorporated in your notion of the entrepreneurial mindset is crucial. So I think those are we've really got 3, well, there's really 4 items there, but
4.
3 of them, or 4, but really 3 of them are really critical. I think less critical is the actual,
Scientific skill set or experience.
or it could be a social scientist.
Yeah, it could be.
Some of the best people actually are English majors who, for whatever reason,
English majors can do anything.
That's right. Just ask Jesse.
English majors go do the most interesting stuff. Every college reunion I go to, it's like the chemistry guys going to chemistry, boring. The English majors go run the world.
Well,
Frank, one of the things that I think would be really valuable is for you to take a look at it and kind of sit back and think about either how those specific skills are described, and or is there one missing, or would you think of it a different way? Because I think Jesse, Zell, and I have all talked about this, and those were the ones we came up with. So I think having you and Victor and Mickey and Maggie really kind of be a neutral party to what we produce and just say, does this make sense? Are
Good.
these the skills that I would say, yep, those are.
We'll do it. And Zell, when are you figuring to get this over to,
Well,
John
okay,
Burt, I
so
guess,
I had a conversation, I guess 2 days ago with Patrice, the mayor. And I told her what we were doing and she liked what we were doing. And I said, well, what kind of time frame? And she said, well, don't rush it. Do a good job. They've got some hurdles to climb over at the town level.
When is the
and
budget final? Like, when do we
It's,
know?
it's final
that-
now. It's done.
Okay, it is.
And
Oh,
it doesn't take effect until July 1st.
right?
But my sense was that they're going to be fiddle faddling around a bit before they actually get this thing done. So the caution or the distinct feeling I got from Patrice was work on it and get it really the way you want it, and then get it to her, and then she wants to look at it, and then she'll pass it on to John Burt to make it all happen.
So don't you think
I
if we another week? I mean, couldn't we get this
week to 2
finalized?
weeks.
I'd
week
say
to
what,
2 weeks.
Sarah, I asked the same question about the budget, something
Yeah.
about quote, where the hell is it? And because number one, it was approved by the RTM.
Yeah,
Then it goes back to the town council.
Yep.
And they have to beat on it and agree on a mill rate.
Done.
And the day after doing that, it showed up in the newspaper. And so now we have a budget, we have a mill rate that goes into effect on the 1st of July. So I'd say we have at least till the 1st of July from what Zell is saying, because nothing is going to happen on any of this until the money
Yeah,
are
but I
in the
mean,
bank.
I also don't think that I am also not somebody who believes in giving people a bucket load of time to do something that takes, right, a
Right.
half an hour.
Well,
Right.
okay, I
mean,
agree.
then it just means everybody waits till the end of the month and then they finally read it.
Now, we're
right.
going to Maine, so there you are.
All right. Okay, Frank.
So you'll get it
Sooner
you'll
than-
get it sooner than later.
Yeah, I
Okay,
mean,
sooner than later. So can I ask Sarah and Jesse, can you reach out to, make sure you reach out to Maggie and to Victor?
Yep.
And get
well,
their input on this.
did you issued it out to everybody? Did you
Yeah.
issue it out with a call for
Okay. I sent it out to everybody.
Everybody, we got
Yeah,
it.
I know you did, but did you put a date where you wanted comments back?
I did
or-
not.
Okay.
I put it for discussion for tonight.
Right,
So
that's
you
the way
need
I
to,
read it.
I can send out something saying request everybody to get back to you two to work this thing through.
When are you,
Okay, so just to,
Are you
two
leaving
things.
too, Jess? I mean,
no.
Is
no.
there- okay.
When are you leaving, Frank? I mean, it seems to me to just ask people to get back to us within a week.
so it does to me, just a week. I mean, come
Sure.
on.
Absolutely.
what do you guys want? Frank,
What's that?
when are you leaving?
Don't worry about that. After the 1st of July, but I'm not committing. It'll, I have to
Well,
talk
I
to,
mean,
I have to talk to Command Central before I to tell you when I'm leaving. But no, I'd say give us a week to look through this is fine.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, then I'll send out a note to everybody saying,
We talked
get back to
about
you.
it and
Yeah.
please get back,
Yeah.
comments in a week.
Right.
that would be fine. Okay,
Yeah.
now, two other points here I want to make. I made the case to Patrice that we want someone to sit on a selection committee. Absolutely crucial. And I didn't get any pushback from that. We're going to get pushback from the town. But if we set that up right, we may get exactly what we want. That's one thing. Second thing is, I brought to her attention once again that we want to have this in the manager's office. And she understands that. And I think this is going to take some time on her part with the council and with the manager to make that happen. But I just, and she understands why. And I gave the example that the planning folks went ahead and applied for $85,000 grant last year, would never ever talk to us about it. And they went ahead and did it. Of course, they got turned down, but that's another matter. So those are the two things that are going on that seem to be.
Well, so Zell, I mean, this committee has had two huge wins.
Say that again?
Right? You have two big wins. You got your resolution passed, you got the position in the budget, and it's final. I mean,
Yeah.
wow.
No, we
When are you having, when are we
done it
having a
together.
party?
Well, we're not yet. We're not there yet, but we're getting there. It'll be a hell of a Christmas party.
Very
I know.
Party. Christmas.
quickly, we should also celebrate and applaud Zell because the funding for the study of the train possibility
Yeah.
was in the budget that was passed. So congratulations for all his incredible work on that.
It's it's seriously, that is great position to be in, and
Well,
it's, very
okay,
nice.
but I'm still worried because I can't seem to figure out what the hell they agreed to. But I'll figure it out over the next few days. They have all these processes for amendments and so forth, and I've driven poor Jesse crazy. I said, "What does this mean? How does that work?" And I have no idea how it works. But there is money in the budget, and so our next step is probably to see whether the governor will sign it, and I think he probably will. As Christine Connolly, who I have to give a huge amount of credit to, she said, "Oh, not a problem. We linked your money to the Department of Transportation's maintenance fund, and you know it snows here in Connecticut, so he's going to sign that bill." So that's really good. Now, the next big hurdle is going to be dealing with the Transportation Department. And as Frank knows, if there are ever some dinosaurs,
Boy.
they're out there. So we'll just have to see how that goes. So, but I'm very pleased with what happened.
So it'll be good for the task force to kind of recenter on, how we're spending our time and what our focus points are going to be going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think as we talked about 2 months ago, I guess, I need to set up a meeting with the Navy and see where that goes. I also think we need to follow up with the Board of Education. I mean, talk about, I think they didn't quite know what to do with us. But we'll have to see. I mean, that's going to be an ongoing long-term issue. You guys have any thoughts?
The meeting took my breath away.
Huh?
It took my breath away. But I do. We don't need to go into all of the details right now. But I think
Right.
I mean to follow up with. Is it Piazza or Pisa?
Piazza.
Yeah.
Piazza.
Philip Piazza.
Philip, right. Because to get some of the nuts and bolts of the education program in hand. And then, of course, we have our roadway markers program we're going to be playing with. You mentioned seminars, I think, to some extent. We're working on that as well. The school bus, I meant what I said. If I recall correctly, the school budget had $11 million in it for buses. You talk about something like $11 million, and they have to hire a consultant to tell them how to shrink it down. And I ride around town a fair amount, and I can tell you there are a lot of empty buses riding around town, cluttering up the roadways.
I agree.
But I do think that we'll follow up with Norris and see just what's. Yeah, thank you, Jesse. There's the name. Groucho, the duck just came down from the ceiling. Rick Norris. I said, oh my God. So he's working on it to see just what is going on where, because I do think we have a solar panel component to our future effort to take advantage of every roof in town, if you want to start at the end and begin. And there are any number of companies that are doing it. I hadn't heard anything about the condition of the roof, but
oh yeah, that's a factor.
so it's, that's something that came out of it. We will follow up with some of the contractors to see just what their thought of it's about the future of electrifying the vehicles. Both General Motors and Ford are going full bore that way.
Every car manufacturer.
Every car manufacturer is going that way. I don't know about the buses, where they fit into the whole thing. So, and then of
Well,
course, it is what it is, and they put the
Th-
price out and send it back to Groton.
But there is a whole effort at the state level to electrify as many buses as possible in the state bus system.
In the seat
So
system sort of thing, right?
it's not something that's, out there in the future. It's happening.
No. And anyway, she certainly backed away from that in a hurry, but I thank her for letting me know that it's under contract. It's not, they don't own the buses, okay. But they certainly can play a role in seeing to it that the buses are electrified, I would think.
Yeah.
And the business about recycling, I think I told you, I don't like the word wars. We have our drug wars. Pfizer's bad, big corporate thing, CEO that's making millions and millions of dollars on it. So we got to go to war, thing. So I see a piece on the recycling wars or plastic wars, and it was primarily dealing with recycling. And it'll as somebody that got the town of Groton into the trouble they're in terms of recycling, it's sort of amazing when you look at the level of false advertising. I think if you look at some of these plastic things, the little picture holder here, they have that little triangle sitting on the back that's supposed to be recyclable. They also have a little number sitting in the middle of it. Turns out of the tons of stuff, something like 9% of the plastic that's recycled, 9% of umpteen tons gets actually recycled. The rest of it gets boxed up.
It's not cost effective.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But I mean, so when you talk about seeing to it that it goes in the green bin or the red bin or the right bin at school, that's not where the schools ought to be going. They ought to really be looking at just what is recycling and how effective is it and what does it mean? What are the costs? Pro and con. So it's there was a lot in the discussion that you said, holy Christmas, we could be doing so much more.
Yeah.
I agree. Okay. Can I change the subject and can we approve the minutes from the last meeting so we get that done?
March 13th. God, it's been a long time.
Look, okay.
Everybody have any problem with the minutes?
Frank, you motion, I'll second.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Move to
Aye.
accept.
Okay, good. Okay, so there are no public announcements. There are no people who want to talk. Any other updates from any of you all?
I'm expecting to have a Groton Long Point task force, Groton Long Point Bridge task force meeting shortly. The last month's was delayed because of the engineers not getting the drawings and stuff ready. There were a few other issues that I was hoping they're working on. We'll see. I did get recently as in 4 or 5 days ago, the hydraulic study on Palmer's Cove associated with that bridge. So they're making some progress, but it is slow.
Okay. Anybody got anything else?
Do we have any money? Does the town have any money to buy a house?
Do we have what?
Buy a house. If you go across the Groton Long Point Bridge, the house that's at most risk of flooding
Right on the right there. Yeah,
is on the right there, is the little guy, the first one.
right.
And I think it's got a little sign on its door that it's going to be auctioned off or something like that.
Huh.
It's like a foreclosure sign. I didn't stop to look at it. I got a note somewhere in the email on the thing. But that house is certainly that's Joe Quaratella's old house, I think, yeah. But certainly subject to some problems with roadway elevation. You raise the roadway, the driveways get rather steep, as in steeper than Fort Hill. You know, really, it's quite a drop down there. And that's the one
Right.
that's the lowest of the low of the bunch. So we say it really probably shouldn't have been built there in the first place. And here may be an opportunity to get it off the market. I don't know.
Well, from my point of view, you can bring that up at the task force meeting.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting idea. That's
I do.
because
That's
if it's
a good
being
example.
off, it's going to go for not very much.
Well, today, God knows, you know.
Yeah,
That's
true.
right. Okay, anything else? Okay, I'm not sure what we're gonna do next month. If I get something set up with the Navy, I'll try to do that. If not, we may skip over to August. Anybody got anything else to announce?
We were talking about, that would be something like the 15th is the second Thursday.
Yeah, it's the second Thursday of the month.
It'd be 15 July.
No, it's actually the first. is-
No, it's the 8th of July. And what's the August one?
Oh, sorry, the 8th of July. Okay.
The 12th.
Yeah, the 12th.
Yeah, the 8th of July is gonna be a bit problematic for me because I've got a major zoning issue in Groton.
I'll be here the
And
8th of
no,
July. I'm very
brother.
likely here the 8th of July, but not the 15th.
The 12th of
So,
August would be the problem for me because I too am going to Maine.
I'm going to be in Maine the 12th of August.
Okay.
We can Zoom at Eastern Yacht Club.
Yeah, we'll Zoom from, that's right, various yacht clubs throughout the East Coast.
Why don't we just say next meeting date to be determined since you've got to
I will
talk.
do that.
TBD.
That's fine. Okay.
Good.
Well, good. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
Anything else from anybody?
For sure.
Okay, I just want to thank you all for working real hard in this stuff because I think we've actually, in spite of how slow it may have felt, we've actually gotten a lot done. And I really appreciate everybody pitching in to make this all happen. I think there are a few task forces across the state that have got what we've got sort of set up. So I'm really pleased with that. And so thank you very much for all of your help. And I'll get an email out probably tomorrow morning to everybody about getting back to Jesse and Sarah on the job situation. Okay,
Thank you.
Thank
for
you.
the-
thank you.
For the persistence. Stay well.
Okay, will do. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.